Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to our rundown of the best animated feature films at this year's Oscars, our yearly tradition of talking about these films. Because let's be real here, because a lot of directors from animated films have been talking about it. Animated films are cinema. Let's just put that straight on the page. Enough with the here's one for the kids kind of thing. No, animated films should be taken way more seriously, and we've always loved animated films on this channel, and we always are advocates for them being recognized as cinema. So we always have this yearly discussion about which one we think is the best of the year. How are we doing, Charlie?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about the only category that matters at the Oscars. Can tell us about any of the others.
Yes.
I'm here for the animated films, so yeah, I'm excited.
Exactly. And we've got 5 very strong nominees this year. I know that some years we have some films which get in just because they are made by certain companies and stuff like that. But I think it's fair to say that all 5 of these films this year, I watched them and I was like, yeah, I can see these being some of the best animated films of this year. It makes sense. So we're going to go around and discuss through all of them. We're going to talk about which ones were our favorites, good for some parts from them, bad parts of them, controversial parts from possibly some of them. We'll have a discussion about as well. So we want to actually know at home what you think is going to win. I mean, this category might be sealed already, but we just want to know what you guys think should win. Okay, what you think is actually your favorite film from the year. So please comment below with your pick out of the 5, and make sure to also like, share, subscribe to the channel, do all of the normal stuff, and also find us on our social medias for any of the info on any of the videos that we're making. So that is at cinema_savvy on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Go find us on Letterboxd as well. Just type in Cinema Savvy there, where we'll update all of our lists of the films watched and the things that we've reviewed. And also go onto our Redbubble store, pick up a t-shirt, pick up a jumper, pick up whatever you like. Come help support the channel. So let's get into it. Before we go into all 5 individually, I just want to know your thoughts on whether there was any snubs outside of the ring, what your thoughts were when they announced these 5 films in particular. Was there any that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me because if I could, I would say that there should be more than 5 nominees in this category, because animation is so varied and it's obviously it's not a genre, so it's like maybe there should be more sort of nominee spots there for this category. But I personally think Disney have been snubbed this year, which is not something that we say very often in this category.
Ooh.
I think Strange World should be in there. I think the whole film itself was snubbed by Disney themselves because they didn't give it the release it deserved. They didn't give it any marketing. Like, so many people haven't even heard of it, and it's on Disney Plus now. Like, anyone can go and watch it, but people still don't know what it is. But I personally think it's really just a brilliant original story, great character designs, great voice acting. Yeah, so that for me was a big shame. I also loved Apollo 10.5, but I think you were saying before that there's like an issue why it couldn't be considered. I think that's a shame.
Yeah, so because it's a rotoscoped film, I think there's a rule in place that if it's rotoscoped, it can't be nominated because it's
right.
This is the whole thing about whether animated film is actual cinema. Come on, like, this is the whole debate behind it. What they're saying is it's not an animated film because they're using real life filming techniques in the same way that Avatar's using real life filming techniques.
Have the people who make this rule seen Marcel the Shell?
I know exactly. We'll go on to talking about that.
90% live action, so just saying.
So there's a large process there with kind of proving whether a film can actually be nominated or not. And I think it failed that process. I know there's been a few films over the years that have failed that process.
Yeah, I would imagine things like Tintin and Polar Express.
Tintin and Polar Express were the 2 examples I was exactly going to say.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But at the same time, you watch those films and you go, those are animated films. Yes, sure, it's rotoscoped, but they have drawn and animated over the top of them. So
Yeah, I just think the part of the problem is that animated is too blurred. It's too big. It's too big. It's not even a genre. Like, you can't even call it a genre. It's not a genre. It's too big of a technique in filmmaking
mm,
to isolate just 5 films. I mean, it doesn't cover everything these films include, you know? And it's an interesting debate to have as well, because obviously stop motion animation is a significant style of animating,
mm,
but then there's a big debate about whether puppetry films are included in animation, because how are they any different to stop motion? You know, it's the same idea. You build something, you film it, and you change its position, you film it. It's the same thing. So I've seen many sort of like debates and arguments about things like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, those kind of films. Are they considered animation? Are they considered live action? Are they their own entity? Like,
mm.
it's an interesting conversation to have. That being said, Marcel the Shell is amazing, so I don't want to. So, but yeah, I think, yeah. So sort of back to the original point. I think Strange World, Apollo 10.5. I would have liked to have seen My Father's Dragon from Cartoon Saloon
I
on the
think
list.
I was going to say, isn't that the first Cartoon Saloon film not to be nominated for
I
Best
don't
Animated
know
Feature?
for sure, but a lot
I
of their
am
films have been. I'm
I'm
not
like
sure if all.
90%. They've only had like 5 films, right?
Yeah,
So
this is their fifth feature length, but I'm not sure if
so
all 3 of the Folklore trilogy got
Secret of the
nominated.
Kells, then we had
Song of the Sea,
Song of the Sea. They
which I'm
both got
pretty sure
nominated.
was, and Wolf
Wo
Walkers.
Wolf Walkers is definitely nominated because it should have won.
It should
That's
have won. Should have
and
won
this is
Best
their
Picture.
4th film?
The Breadwinner, which is
The
actually the
Breadwinner.
same
That
team from Cartoon Saloon as
also
My Father's Dragon.
yeah, that also got nominated. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the first one.
So there we go.
Interesting.
And I think that's a shame. It's definitely catered to a much younger audience than some of
Mm,
their previous films, but that doesn't mean to say it's any less than their other ones. It's absolutely stunning,
mm.
and their animation style is becoming so recognizable now as well. Which, yeah, I think it's a real shame that didn't get a look in.
If we're throwing one in for animation style, I would have thrown in as well the bad guys. I wasn't too fond of the plot, but I do
Mm,
like the kind of cartoonish nature of it. It felt like I was reading a comic book whilst doing it in a very
mm.
different way to, like, an actual comic book film like Into the Spider-Verse felt like an
Yeah, yeah.
actual comic book.
But
It
I
had
think we
its
can
own,
all go
yeah,
ahead.
unique style to it. I was just gonna say it just had its own little unique style to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we can just all agree that we're happy to see DC Super Pets did not make the
Oh,
cut.
thank God for that. Or Rise of Gru, not
Oh,
in there.
don't even talk to me about Minions. I don't want them entering this chat.
We won't get started there, but we will start soon on our nominees. We're just going to go through a few comments, both from Dave. Good evening, Dave. My Father's Dragon is a beautiful movie. Pinocchio seems to be defined for the win. I really enjoyed the Sea Beast. Well, talking of the Sea Beast, let's go
Nice
into the Sea
segue.
Beast. This one was the second to last one I watched from all of these. It wasn't one even slightly on my radar until it got nominated. And that's where it kind of went, oh, okay, maybe I should give it a watch if it's been nominated. I should go have a look at it. I was pleasantly surprised. Solid voice acting performances across the board, really cool animation style, really got into the plot. It felt like an adventure. It was just a fun film. There's not really much I can say past that other than
Mhm.
I had fun with it.
Yeah, I think it's proof that Netflix definitely have got the skill to do great animated films. Obviously, we'll come to Pinocchio later. It's kind of
Mm,
different, but I think they've proved themselves with this, and it's so nice to see it getting a nomination because it didn't get a cinema release. It barely got a home release. I mean, I don't think a lot of people knew it had even been released when it was.
mm,
But I agree with you. I think the voice acting is on point. The animation is absolutely stunning. I mean, we're kind of veering away from CG animation at the moment, which is nice. It's nice to see a change coming, but this animation is so beautiful. And yeah, I'd love to have seen it in the cinema. I think it's such a shame it didn't get that release. But I will say it's basically How to Train Your Dragon in water. I think that's the only place it falls short, is
Mm,
its plot isn't entirely original. But otherwise I loved it. It was recommended to me by a friend. I hadn't even heard of it at the time, and that's I mean, not to blow my own horn, but that's not like me to have not heard of an animated film's release, because it's kind of my thing, you know. But with Sea Beast, I didn't even know about it, and then I saw it, and I was just like, "Oh, this film! People should be watching this. It's beautiful."
mm. I saw it advertised on Netflix. I flick through Netflix every now and then, and it was on the homepage, I want to say, for 2 or 3 days.
Mhm.
And I was like, it just gave me really bad flashbacks to, was it To the Moon
Oh,
from
Over the
last year?
Moon.
Over the Moon from a few years ago. I was like, oh God, not another Netflix animated film. And all I was thinking was, just I don't want to put myself through that again. And that's sometimes you have a film, and I don't think To the Moon did very well, or Over the Moon, or whatever it was called, on Netflix itself. But the fact that it got nominated for Best Animated Feature meant that it got a lot of attention and a lot of people watching it who wouldn't have normally watched it.
Mhm.
And it was such a bad film.
Yeah.
Like, it was
I was
such a terrible film.
I was so disappointed because it did come from Glen Keane, who used to work at Disney, and he's a bit of a Disney legend. But I thought the sort of opening chapter of it was so good, and I was like, "Oh my god, we're in for it! This is the
Mm.
Moana of
And then they
Netflix.
got To the
Like,
Moon.
we're getting something really special here." And then they were like, "Yeah, but it's animated, so it's a kids' film. So make sure you put in loads of color and loads of soft surfaces
We're
and
just
loads of
we're gonna have a
blurry
weird, just
shapes."
a pop song dance off thing in the
It was
middle.
Eurovision in
It
space.
was
I mean, it
Eurovision
was
in
just
space.
awful. It was awful. Such a
Anyway,
shame.
that immediately made me think, "No, I'm not gonna watch this film," until it was
Yeah,
nominated, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I'll I'll
go on
I'll
then.
watch it." And I initially had it, set up as like a, "Okay, I'll watch it, but I'll be kind of doing stuff in the background. I'll
Yeah,
invest my time on it. It will have the film there. I will have attention paid to it, but I will be doing other things at the same time." And it got to about the 10-minute mark where I was just like, "No, I need to really pay attention to this film.
yeah,
This actually has quite an interesting plot to it." Um, and yeah, it took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out it was Carl Urban,
yeah,
as the voice actor. And I mean, I've had my gripes with, celebrities and actors doing voice acting roles in films. I believe that voice actors in animated films and TV shows definitely have their place and should have their spotlight. It shouldn't just be, let's cast the celebrity voice into the role. But
mhm,
with this one, I truly believe it was good because it took me so long to figure out who it was.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I did get to kind of the halfway stage of the film where I think he first encounters the sea beast on the island, and I was like, I feel
I
like I feel like this is a celebrity voice actor, but I can't pin who it is. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that it's a celebrity. And I did, and I was like, oh, it's Carl Owen. And I was like, listen to the voice, and I was like, I don't see that. I
mm,
really don't see that.
yeah,
I still couldn't link it until a little bit later on, but it's nice when you get that sometimes, because
yeah,
with a lot of these films that we're going to be talking about, it is, you know, yeah, it's the person filling the role in some cases,
yeah.
and it doesn't always work.
Yeah. And I think it's like you wouldn't expect any celebrity actor to go on set and do their own stunts. You know, it's voice
Hmm.
acting is a skill that requires a lot of training, a lot of ability, a lot of, originality. And I'm not saying it's the same as doing stunts, but I just mean it's something it's another thing that you need to be able to do to do it well. And I think an actor going in the example I can think of, and I don't know why, I don't know why this is the one that's come to my head, but Happy Feet 2, for example, there are two hilarious characters in it who are voiced by Brad Pitt and Matt Damon, two of my favorite actors, but they just sound like Brad Pitt and Matt Damon having a chat. And it's like, this is not right. Like, that's not voice acting. You've got Matt Damon to go and stand in a booth and just talk like
Yeah,
Matt. He probably doesn't even know what character he's voicing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a different skill, and I think Carl Urban did a fantastic job in that film.
brilliant. So we're going to move on to The only sequel or franchise on this list, wow, that is
Yeah,
such a change from what is normal.
that's nice.
Normally, you'll get one in there or like two or three
Mm.
consuming the list, but it's so nice to have something fresh like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish gracing our list. And I don't care what you think, Charlie. I think this film's fantastic. I'm with the internet.
This
I'm with
one.
the world with this one. This film is brilliant. In fact, out of all of the films this year, it's close to Pinocchio. I don't know if I would put it above Pinocchio or not. I really enjoyed it. I think it has rewatchability value. I think it has some fantastic humor. I think it's a great return to form for the Shrek franchise. There are only small, minor kind of problems that I have with the film, but most of it is so minor. It's yeah. The animation style was great. The characters introduced were fantastic. The voice acting was absolutely on point. The story itself was brilliant. Probably the best animated villain in years. In fact, one of the best villains in years of cinema, I would point out as well.
Are you referring to the wolf or to
I
Jack
am
Horner?
referring to the wolf. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
I'd say, I mean, Jack Horner's hilarious,
No,
quotable,
I'll
and
give you the
hilarious.
wolf, but I I can't go any further than that.
Just the lines are brilliant and fit so well into the Shrek franchise. I was expecting nothing from this film. I was like, wow, I didn't realize Puss in Boots 1 did so well. They're making a second one.
Yeah, but
I
the
feel like
first one was awful.
I know that's what I thought as well. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? They're making a second film? Like, and I was like, oh God, okay, fine. And then I sat down to watch it because the internet was like, oh my God, where did this film come from? And I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. And wow.
It's fine. No,
Don't temper the
I
expectations of this film. It's brilliant.
I didn't love it. There were some things I did like about it. I personally really didn't like the change of animation style. I don't think it was at all necessary. DreamWorks are one of the biggest animation studios in the world. They could do so much with CG, and they just decided to go for this weird paint stroke animation. And for such a well-established franchise, I mean, the original Shrek film is iconic, and it's a
Mm.
I will never say a bad word against that film. I just think it's so strange at this point in the franchise to just be like, do you know what? We're just going to completely change the way the whole thing looks. And now there's talks about Shrek coming back, and it's like, are you going to change the whole look of Shrek? Like it just doesn't make it make sense. If you want to make an animated film with that animation style, do something new, write something new, invent that style into your own sort of unique way. Puss in Boots did not need to change its animation style. So that was my first problem, and I had that problem from the moment I saw the trailer. So I kind of went in with not great expectations. I liked some of the characters. I really liked Goldilocks and Three Bears. I thought they were great fun. Obviously, Florence Pugh is wonderful, and she did a great job in that role. And she kind of they used her gravelly voice to their advantage, which was really nice. And yeah, I think the story was clever. It was different. It felt quite fresh. It wasn't just like they picked up an old, children's fairy tale and gone, oh, which one shall we do today? They actually did kind of invent something a little bit more original, which was nice. And the wolf is brilliant, a brilliant character invention. I really, really liked that. But you will never see me watching this film again. I got to
Really?
the end of it and I was like, my head hurts. It was so blunt. There was so much happening. I don't know where the emotional weight was. But then, there is the argument that, I'm not its target audience, and that's fine, but that's my opinion.
I just enjoyed the funny cat action film, not gonna lie.
Funny cat.
Um, do you know what? And I'll say as well, I really enjoyed Jack Horner. I'm sorry, I did. He
I
is
couldn't
so
even look at
quotable.
him. He was so gross.
That's the whole point of his character.
Oh, did not enjoy it.
He's meant to be a gross, kind of horrifying, irredeemable monster. And if you haven't figured that out already, yeah, I know he's just fantastic, quotable, and meeting his comeuppance in the end, brilliant. And the fact that they were able to tie in so many kind of interesting elements from various different animated films, it harkened back to kind of the self-referential humor of fairy tales from the original Shrek movies.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad it's picking up a lot of momentum. I'm glad that people are enjoying it as well. And if they are going to extend the Shrek franchise, I'm not sure what they're going to do with the animation. But I really hope that the wolf comes back, and I really hope
Yeah.
they close off Puss in Boots' story.
Yeah, I agree.
I,
And to
I think, yeah, there's
to
a payoff there.
respond to Eddie Murphy's recent interview, no, we do not need a donkey origin story or spin-off or his own
No,
film. That is not necessary.
but I want to see a high stakes final Shrek film, really high stakes. Puss in Boots sacrificing himself and greeting death like an old friend, because that just reads straight off the books from Terry
Yeah,
Pratchett, and that
yeah,
would be a fantastic ending to that character
that
and
would
bring
be
this film full circle.
but
I'm
go back
writing the film
to
for you, DreamWorks. Hire me.
You're so
In fact, just hire me so we can change back your logo screen to something different, because that
Oh, right?
is god awful.
That was
Awful.
weird. Yeah,
Yikes.
too much.
Anyway, let's let's talk about the favorite. Let's just go into what let's be real. Let's go into what's going to win the best animated feature this year. Everyone said it was going to win before the film was even released.
Yeah.
There was talks of it possibly being nominated for Best Picture, the first one since Toy Story 3, animated film to be nominated for Best Picture. It's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good, we
Five-star
can move
film.
on. No, brilliant. The only irk I have with it is a lot of the voice actors in the film, I knew exactly who they were straight away, and I saw them as those people.
Mhm.
That's the only issue I have with the film. Everything else, the setting of it being set in fascist Italy, I think is a fantastic kind of change from the story. Like it's framed so well. I think, and this, I don't know how people are going to stand on this, because I know you're a massive Disney fan. I prefer it to the original.
Okay.
I can feel the hate coming through,
I
you
just
know.
I think okay, you can compare them, but I also think in a sense you kind of can't compare them. Like what Del Toro has done with this one is completely rewritten it, really. I mean, yeah, the skeleton of the story is there, but he's given it a new life. The
Mm.
original Disney adaptation of Pinocchio shows its age. And it hasn't aged well. And you know, I think this is kind of reimagining the story of Pinocchio.
I think I was going to say the best way of describing them both is the original Pinocchio is a fairy tale, and this is
Mhm.
more like folklore.
Yeah, exactly. And Del Toro is just skilled at that. He knows how to do dark fantasy. He knows how to manipulate a story to tell it how he envisions it. And I think making it a musical was genius. The songs are fantastic. There was a few of the cast I was like, I don't know if I would have used them, but you know, whatever. The film's amazing. He's achieved just he's achieved Leica standard of stop motion
Mm,
films, and Leica are the best in the game when it
they
comes
are.
to. Oh, I've just thought of another film that actually kind of maybe could have had a look in this year was Wendell and Wild. The
Yeah,
that kind of got forgotten about, and I'm wondering
and
if it kind of fell under Pinocchio's shadow a little bit.
maybe. I mean, here's the thing, though. It was on Netflix, and so is Sea Beast. So it's
Yeah,
whether
that's
they
true.
wanted free Netflix nominees or not, because they would have dominated the category this year if that was the case.
Yeah, maybe if
Um,
they pushed, Wendell and Wild back to 24,
yeah,
it would have got a bit more of
I
a bit
know.
more
I was
attention.
going to say the final of a snub that I can think off the top of my head. I haven't seen it yet, but I know that a lot of people are crying out for Mad God to be nominated.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either,
Mm,
but I've heard the same. Um,
but,
but yeah,
well,
but, I mean, Pinocchio is and it was such a joy to see it at the London Film Festival last year. It was such a nice addition to the programme, and I just think it's in a league of its own, really. I mean, I don't think I'd go as far to say it's my favourite out of the 5, my personal favourite, but I think technically it's the best one. Like it just showcases so many different skills, and I think it really is incredible.
I mean, I'd say from a storytelling standpoint, I'd say most of the voice acting as well, from the framework, from the production, everything. It was just so well put together.
Yeah. And
So
his love
well
for
done.
it, it's clearly a labour of love, a huge passion project for him. And I remember years ago when they announced Del Toro was doing Pinocchio, everyone was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Like,
Mm,
why who else would you get to do Pinocchio? I mean,
exactly.
he's just the right guy for the job.
Brilliant. So let's move on. Let's talk about the controversial one, the one that we were referring to earlier. I'll go into my first thoughts on the film straight away and just say that Marcel the Shell with Shoes is the most wholesome pick out of all of these. It is a brilliant, I wouldn't even call it coming of age film. It's just a brilliant kind of realization of the world film. You kind of brought into this world with this wide-eyed open shell with shoes, and they kind of hold your hand around the house and just kind of shows you what it's like to have an imagination and
Yeah,
be a child again. And it was so heartwarming to watch, and it was so heartbreaking to watch. And it was it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. It shouldn't be nominated. It's not an animated film.
oh god, it's such a blurred line. I mean, I would love to see the, like, the rules, the regulations to make it in this for it to land in this category, because if it's not in this category, it probably wouldn't have got noticed in the Oscars. Where would it sit? It doesn't sit anywhere. It's entirely its own creation. And
I mean, you could maybe give it something for cinematography, possibly.
yeah, an original screenplay. I mean, the
Yeah.
script is brilliant. The sort of mockumentary style
I'm
of it.
actually I'm actually really surprised it didn't get nominated for original screenplay.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know if it would have fallen into original because it was short films to begin with, wasn't it?
Oh,
It
it
was
was
a
a short film, so
YouTube
it would have been
series,
adapted, wouldn't it?
adapted screenplay, but
I'm
written
I'm
by the
I'm
same
wait,
guy.
I'm shocked it wasn't nominated for a screenplay because it was
Yeah.
a very good screenplay.
But what Marcel the Shell does do is it highlights one of the biggest gaps in the awards, the categories. There should be an award for voice acting. Jenny Slate's performance as Marcel is just so it's just so good. Like I mean, I think there's three really big awards that are missing from the Academy Awards. Obviously, voice acting, stunts, and casting. They're the three
Exactly.
sort of like areas of the industry that are overlooked. And I think, like we were saying earlier, voice acting is such a skill, and she just completely that Marcel would not work if it wasn't Jenny Slate doing the voice. Like she completely embodies that character. And I mean, Isabella Rossellini playing the grandmother as well. I mean, it's just it's if someone had put this down on paper and said, okay, it's going to be a 90-minute mockumentary about a shell and his grandmother, voiced by these two, everyone would have been like, what the hell are you on about? Kind of fever dream. But no, I think it's incredible. I've seen it twice at the cinema, and yeah, I love things that push boundaries and take risks, and I think I really would not be sad if it took away the award from Pinocchio. I think they're on par with each other in sort of like deserving the award.
Well, it is second favorite at the moment. I think it's getting a lot of attention because I want to say it's the most different out of all of the other
Yeah,
picks. You've got your traditional, or we wouldn't say traditional animations, but you've got your kind of not bog standard even, just your
yeah, you're
baseline
sort of like
films. Like
mainstream sort of CG
I'd say Sea
animation.
Beast kind of turning red, and I dare I say Puss in Boots, apart from the parts where it changes animation style, are those kind of standard animated films.
Yeah,
You've then got the stop motion pick, and then you've also got the other stop motion pick, which is so very different in the
yeah,
way that it's made and filmed and framed. The fact that we've got such a different kind of array of different, picks from the different animation styles in this is brilliant, and that's exactly what
yeah,
you want to see. I guess the only thing you're missing is kind of a foreign language film in here, a foreign film.
yeah.
Um, but I haven't seen any foreign animated films this year. I wouldn't know where to start with them
Mm,
as far as nominations. But no, Marcel the Shell, controversial as far as whether it should be nominated or not. You could say the same about other films, like we've already said Apollo 10 and a half not getting
mhm.
nominated, and
Yeah,
films like Avatar, where do they sit? That's all animated. Like
yeah.
there's barely any live action in that entire
There's
film.
more animation in Avatar than there is in Marcel, like,
Yeah,
by a massive stretch. Like, it's
exactly.
and this just goes back to my original point that this shouldn't even really be a category, because they're not it's not, how can you put a film like Marcel the Shell up against Puss in Boots? I mean, they're not even close to being the same thing, but that's
Yeah.
just how it works. I need to
I
just get over.
wonder if Marcel was to be nominated into different categories, could it be nominated into Best Documentary? Where do
I
mockumentaries
think
sit with documentaries?
Yeah, I'm not sure how mockumentaries sit, because I guess if it was a mockumentary based on fact, it probably would. But because this is actually just a fictional story told
Yeah.
through that style, I don't think it would quite. This is what I mean. It
But
needs its own
you're
category. It needs
technically
to.
well, what this film does is it documents a fictionalized event. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but like, we need the Marcel the Shell Award, and each year it can just go to a film that just doesn't really
Shelley.
fit anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here's the thing. Out of this year, the films that don't really fit anywhere, the film that would win it would probably be Everything Everywhere All at Once, not Marcel. So it wouldn't even
Let's
win
hope
its
that
own
doesn't
award.
happen.
Anyway, let's move on to our final film. Let's move on to our only Disney pick. Wow, weird that I'm saying that. Turning Red.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching this film. I really liked it. The only problem I had with it was the ending and it
Mhm.
being kind of like a giant battle at the end, and it wasn't really needed. We
Mm.
discussed this before the live stream as well, a little bit, and talked about it. And I feel like my reflections on this film, because at the time I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't too sure on it. I haven't seen it since, but my memories of the film are fonder than they are kind of leaning towards kind of mediocrity and negativity. I do have fond memories of this film. I do think it's a very good film amongst their catalogue.
Mhm.
I don't really have anything else to really say about it. All I remember is it being really Canadian and really 90s and quite
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I, so Turning Red is my favorite in this category. I
Really?
Obviously, I
Okay. Yeah.
love
Okay. There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
so many of them, but Turning Red for me sort of speaks to me on a slightly more personal level, not because I turn into a giant red panda, as much as I wish I did. Sadly, that's not my truth. But no, it talks about the coming of age of a young teenage girl, and for me, I just saw so much of my own early teenage years in Mei Mei and her group of friends. Obviously, it's a very different cultural background. She's obviously got a very different family life to sort of how I grew up, but
Mm.
it's the friendship bond, it's the obsession over the boy band, it's the like goofy teenagers with braces and frizzy hair, and they're going through puberty, and it's that kind of like for me, this brought the magic of Pixar back into maybe what we haven't seen so much of in the last few years. I put this up there with some of Pixar's best. I think the animation is absolutely flawless. This is what I mean. Like, you don't have to change your animation style to make it look good. CG animation has been around for years now, but Pixar still seem to be able to push themselves to a point where every film that comes out, it's still breathtakingly beautiful. Like, their ability is just out of this world good. And for me, I think Turning Red just is such an important film for young girls to watch, young boys as well. I'm sure there
Mm.
must be a relatable element to it for all genders, But yeah, for me, I just love it. I've seen it maybe 3-4 times since it came out, and I'm just so thankful that I know it's not going to win, and I've made peace with that. But I'm
Mm.
so thankful it is sitting in the nominations, and Lightyear didn't take that spot. I was really
Yes.
worried that was going to happen, because I know the Academy loves Toy Story, and that's fine. But I'm so happy to see it there.
That one's a very interesting point because we always look ahead at the Pixar and the Disney slate, and we always look
Mhm.
at the films that are being released. And this one was straight onto Disney Plus, Turning Red.
Yeah.
This one was straight onto a streaming service, which usually means that they don't have too much faith in it as
Hmm.
far as their product's concerned. And we were discussing this before, and I remember George saying they're really pushing for Lightyear because that one's going into cinemas. They're really banking on Lightyear being a big thing. And yet Lightyear bombed. Lightyear not only bombed, but did not do well with critics. And yet Turning Red, that went onto the streaming service, did not only very well, but it also had pretty good revenue numbers as far as I remember.
Mm.
Or
And it's
I can't remember if they
nominated.
released them. Yeah,
I
and it's
mean,
nominated.
like
Yeah.
I think Lightyear is an interesting conversation to have because it's one of those films that when it was announced, everyone was like, "This is unnecessary. Like, we
Mhm.
don't need this." But actually, I really like the concept. I love the opening tag that says, "This is the film that Andy watched." You know, I like that they're kind of still bringing in that original fandom into it, and I think that's great. My issue with Lightyear is the color palette. It's incredibly dull, and the plot. I mean, they changed who Zurg is. I don't know why they did that. That was unnecessary, and it to me it was just a little bit flat and sort of repetitive. I think the animation was great, but there's only so many times I can say how good Pixar's animation is. You know,
Mm.
they're the best in the game. But yeah, I'm so glad that Turning Red is there, and people have almost forgotten about Lightyear. You know,
Mm.
it's not rewatchable, but Turning Red for me, I could watch it every week, and I don't think I'd get bored of it. I love it so much. I'm so happy it's nominated.
So your favorite in the category is Turning Red, but your prediction for the winner is?
Pinocchio.
My favorite in the category, I'm split between Puss in Boots and Pinocchio, but I'll be honest, I think Pinocchio is going to win it.
Oh,
Um,
don't.
it's such a fun film. It's got
If
such a
Puss
good
in Boots
rewatchability
wins,
value.
if Puss
If
in Boots
Puss in
wins,
Boots wins,
I quit animation. Can't do this anymore.
anyway, we want to know what you guys at home think.
Mhm.
We want to know, what is your winner? In fact, rank them if you want to, on which
Yeah.
one's your favorite, which one's your least favorite. And let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you think about the animated feature category as a whole. Should it
Yeah.
exist? Should it not exist? Go straight into the comments. Just let us know.
And also give us some recommendations if there's any we've not spoken about. I'm always
Mm,
on the lookout for animated films I haven't seen, so please throw them my way.
yes, we'll be keeping a keen eye on the chat for any of those, because I would also like to see any that I've missed from the last year
Mhm.
that were good in this category. Please also go follow us on our socials. So Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and Letterboxd, just type in Cinema Savvy, and go onto Redbubble to help support the channel. Charlie, what's happening with you? Would you like to advertise yourself very quickly and tell us about where we can find you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've recently got my Instagram back up and running. So I can't remember the handles though. I think it's Funny Old World. I'm not sure. Search me on there. You'll see. It's Funny Old World on Twitter as well. And I mean, we're in the ultimate countdown now. It's well, next week. I work in casting, and we've got a big casting awards next week, so that's taking up quite a bit of my time. But then it's a home run to the Academy Awards, and I cannot wait for Monday, the 13th of March, when I've got the day off work and I can sleep.
I don't have the day off work, and I'm 1 hour ahead. I will be up at 1 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the morning, and then up again at 7 to start work. So that's my
God,
commitment. My commitment
what
to
we
the
do.
watching the Academy Awards stream every single year is always there. So anyway, thank you ever so much, everyone, for watching. Please make sure to tune in to our live stream when it goes up for the Academy Awards, where we'll be talking about every single category as we go through. Should be a very fun evening. And once again, please let us know in the comments what you think about the animated films from this year and if we missed any. Thank you ever so much, and we will see you on the next one.